Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So we make sure we start on time today. That doesn't mean everybody's going to get here on time. But for those who don't know me, I'm Jay Vickers. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for UNLV Sports Division Institute, one of the co-founders of SEICon. So we welcome you to the second day of SEICon. I've heard some amazing things from many of you in regards to the first day. And we have a really action-packed day planned for you that relates to our keynotes and all the sessions for the second day and final day of SEICon. And I just want to go off by saying I'm so excited to have the opportunity to address you, the opportunity to bring to you the Sports Entertainment Innovation Conference in its first year. We're so excited to have you in our presence, but we also more excited to share, to be educated and collaborate with you. And hopefully you'll see that as an opportunity to have some deal making. So without further ado, I'd like to bring to the stage our MC, Mr. Rick Horrow.
That was a handshake among people who know each other very well and are starting to work with this conference. So how was day one? Woo! How was night one? Better. I got to put both. This is an incredible panel, obviously high impact, all context, industry leaders, the best. You're going to hear from the top guys from all entities, UFC, TKO, conglomerate, but also Thrill One, all aspects. We'll talk about it in a minute. But without further ado, we'd like to introduce the Senior Vice President, CEO of UFC, Lawrence Epstein, and the EVP of Event Development Operations, TKO.
You've never seen before.
You'll see more of that in a minute. But to complement the team, the CEO of Thrill One Sports and Entertainment, Cohn.
W's on me, may you know me, that's victory. Can't control me, you should know me, I want victory. W's on me, may you know me, that's victory. Can't control me, just victory.
From the mind of action sports icon Travis Pastrana comes the most exciting series in motorsports.
It's the only horse in the world where cars literally fly.
That was wild.
People always said that Nitro Circus couldn't work as a live show, but with this much passion, it was always going to work.
You can never fully appreciate it until you see it.
We are bringing the streets to the lead.
You are not genuinely and irrevocably turned on by the future of action sports after you see that. I'd like you to do me a favor. Take your badges, drop them off, get the hell out of here. The answer. And you're going to hear more and more about not only past and present, but consistent with the theme of this conference, the future of all of this. So, we talked about it a little bit, but just a little bit more perspective. Lawrence Epstein, the senior executive vice president and COO of UFC. Peter Dropick, the executive vice president of event development and operations at TKO. And, they are in harmony and will continue to be. We're going to make sure we got the names right. So, and even more important, Vanderbilt, Syracuse, and Matt Cohn, who is the CEO of Thrill One Sports and Entertainment. I hear over at Syracuse too. We talked earlier in the green room that there is an unwritten rule that we can't have more than one Syracuse person on a panel at a time. We're waiving it for this because this is huge, and we make up for it because there are some intellectual superiority issues here relative to Harvard and Vanderbilt on the right side of this panel. How's that? Should we continue with this conversation given all that? So we're going to start with a little bit of UFC and WWE issues. Let me give you some stats just to start. I'm going to monopolize the panel, but just to put it in perspective. UFC, 975 plus civilian TV households reached by UFC program. And WWE's, you got to look at it now in a different lens. 280 plus live events produced annually consistently sell out some of the most prestigious places around the world. 50 different languages, UFC events, 170 plus countries, 2,000 hours of content produced by UFC every year. And the same kinds of things at UFC and WWE. In that context, it's actually for Lawrence and Pete. Sorry, Lawrence. How did UFC go from basically a niche sport, amazingly 2 decades ago, to probably one of the most, based on metrics, the most popular sport in the world today? Well, we're just going to say thank you for having us on this panel. Excited this event has come together, and also excited about hometown Las Vegas. So, love this partnership activities and UNLV. Listen, there's a lot of stuff that sort of got us to where we are today. I'll mention a couple of things that we're really seeing. And I think it's important to level set everybody as to where the brand was we bought in 2001. So UFC, not started by us, started by some other guys, is 1983. It's a long story, but they essentially drove this thing around. Frank Lorenzo or GWA White buy this company in 2001. Most businesses start on the ground level. This business was like 20 stories underground. It took a long time just to get to the ground level, so we started building a foundation. But the first thing, and this was key to, basically how we did here. The first thing that was done was a strategy to legitimize and to ultimately organize the sport. That was done through running towards regulation. We went to athletic commissions first in Nevada, and then, of course, all around the country. Got this a consistent set of rules, the unified rules of mixed martial arts, approved by all those states, and we ultimately, in all 50 states, got a law passed that either expanded the existing purview of athletic commissions that will regulate boxing, or established new commissions to regulate sports. That was number one, legitimizing and getting some sort of regulatory governmental oversight. The second thing that I think is incredibly important has been our philosophy on content creation. We are not one of these sports that just goes to ABC or NBC or at ESPN and just to say, take the brand, you guys produce it how you want. Part of the start out of necessity because nobody would really broadcast us, but creating the core competency in content creation, controlling that content, making sure that it was consistent everywhere it was produced all around the world. And I think that's the third thing I'll mention is having a global mindset. We never thought of ourselves as a North American brand, a U.S. brand.
and felt this product working everywhere. Nobody says it better than Dana White. This is, fighting's in our DNA. We get it. We like it. And so having that international and global mindset, connecting to our content creation, those were three things that we did that were just fundamental to getting us to where we are today.
So, and we'll continue that story. We'll talk about TKO, the consolidation, what that meant in a couple of minutes. But from your perspective as being involved in all of this as well and the journey, if you'd have thought, same kind of mainstream question, that you'd have today 700 million UFC fans globally across 57 countries, and you were kind of early on the stage, fairy tale, but, how did you get here from your perspective? Maybe here with Lord said, it's great to be here, be a Syracuse grad, bringing my new talent to bring this together here. It's great, excited to have a bigger West Coast presence, specifically here in Vegas for Syracuse. I started in 2006. I was a 35th employee. We had one office that was shared. There was people, had literally desks in closets. We were doing, I believe, 12 events that year, only in Nevada and New Jersey, because those were the only states that were sanctioning it. I think we had less than 100 athletes on the roster. Then you look at it today, I think we're 500 plus employees. We have a beautiful, headquarters campus and performance engine here in Vegas with a state-of-the-art broadcast operations center that rivals anything in the U.S. We've got 600 plus athletes under roster. We're doing 42 events a year. We've been to almost 30 countries for our events. So it kind of puts into perspective where we were even in 2006 to where we are. And, WWE has a similar path. They were very global, regional wrestling promotion based out of the Northeast. They're doing events in high schools and war memorials, which I don't believe exist any in this. And, they've grown the same concept to as this massive media company with a 700 plus employees, incredible headquarters, this broadcast center, and they're all over the world as well, with their live events. We'll deal with Thrill One in a second, but I just have a follow up for both of you, because the numbers we knew the numbers. Someone who, of course, know the industry understands they're robust, but these are not robust. These are astronomical. It is an incredible 20-year journey, even less so. Do you sometimes think that people don't understand the dynamics of the numbers, that you see numbers this big, people kind of glaze over and don't understand the true impact of those numbers relative to others in the industry? NFL numbers are great, but this is so.
Yeah, I mentioned, our global appeal. I think that's something that gives us, frankly, a leg up over almost any organization, particularly the U.S.-based sports organizations, because we have a global appeal. Dana mentioned, it was very controversial at times, said George St. Pierre, famous athlete in history, and it was like uproar. What are you talking about? What about this hockey player? Yeah. And Dana said, yeah, those guys are super popular in Canada, and they probably have bigger numbers than George St. Pierre. But go to Brazil. Go to these countries all around the world. People know what George St. Pierre is. They add all that up. It dwarfs, what Wayne Gretzky's numbers are. So that global appeal, is something that I think has given us a huge advantage. And, it's something that we talk about all the time. And it's why brands want to associate with us. It's why so many broadcasters want to associate with us, because we've got a global audience. And that's true for WWE too.
Yeah. And when Dana White says something that's astronomical, if the numbers support it, it's realistic.
Right.
All right. So let's talk about Thrill One. So, and the numbers are 570 million motorsports fans worldwide, 503 million action sports worldwide, 85 million active skaters worldwide. Maybe understand, and you got to amalgamate 83 plus territories and countries, 158 million television households, 40 million followers across social media, knowing the proliferation, expansion of social media, probably 45 million in the sporting, 48 million by 4 o'clock, on and on and on. Give us your perspective. You're at the cusp, I think you would argue, of going from a niche sport to a mainstream sport. What's that path look like?
Because we let that passion sport. It's always been mainstream.
going back to Evil Knievel and the X Games. But one event for a couple of stunts of year, not enough, especially in today's world. So for us to when I have 50 events per year, being able to reach our fans, engage with fans, work with our branding partners, pay our athletes, I think that's important, especially with the social media generation you mentioned. And our athletes for the fall, they are mainstream. We have Ryan Williams, who rides BMX for us. He's the most viral athlete on the planet. He has 6 YouTube videos of 75 million views, more than NFL, NBA, and any other league. And then we have a skateboarder, Raíssa Leal, 16-year-old girl from Brazil. She's the 4th most followed female athlete on Instagram. And I'm actually running shoes just released for Nike 2 months ago. So the athletes are mainstream. It's really up to us to provide the platform for them. And I think it's the number of events, able to talk to our fans more often. Really bad city isn't discussed.
When you look at your stats, obviously your stats too, but when you look at your stats, and the glaze over question is important for you too, because when you amalgamate the motorsports fans, the action sports fans, and the active skaters fans, I'm no math guy, but that's it's a billion. It's a lot of people.
Yeah.
So are you a little amazed at the growth? And then give me the glazed over answer to the numbers. Can you tell the whole story through the numbers?
So I think much like these guys, it is global in nature. There is no link to failure. Everyone who blows up riding a bike or having a skateboard and helps us. We all have an imagination. You can participate in our sports. And the 2 athletes I mentioned are from Australia, from Brazil. So part of our playbook is following them. And there's a whole league of fans telling up beneath them. So I think action sports, which have been historically public in the U.S. and particularly the Southwest, is really just on the cusp of bringing through globally. And the Olympics has certainly helped with that. Skateboarding, this will be the 2nd time it's reached in the Olympics. We have 27 athletes participating. So I really think we're on the verge of breaking through globally in a much bigger way.
So, you look at the evolution of the business, and we'll get into some of these other numbers. By the way, but if I were an advertiser, I saw all of these numbers from all you guys, I'd say, it's like a free, stay in the road, where do I sign? Give me the checkbook, and how many zeros do you want? I mean, that's, kind of where that is. But, let's talk about your evolution and the creation of TKO, what it means for both the UFC and WWE fans, and how it's impacted the operation of both of the organization.
So just answering sort of the question, just spoke there about those numbers. The sponsorship and partnership part of our events at WWE and UFC and TKO, those numbers are resonating with sponsors. They're signing us and not letting us leave. To answer your question, sort of about, the bringing together these 2 great content creators. We're 10 months in. It just happened, the combination of UFC and WWE and the creation of TKO. Incredibly excited about what Steve is bringing to this. 2 great content creators, 2 great promoters of 2 different, pieces of content. Because our strategy is pretty straightforward. We got 2 fan bases. We got 2 types of content. We're going to keep the production of those pieces of content separate, but we're going to look for bust. First, we're going to look for crossovers and efficiency. That's really how do you create a situation where you don't have temptation of certain things. We've done that, and that's happened during with. But the exciting stuff, the really exciting stuff is considered. How do you take these 2 great content creators, put them together in a 1 + 1 4 5 situation? And we've done that in so many situations. And luckily, to my left here, Pete is really in the middle of it. Pete, as the head of TKO, scheduling, event operations, and all the stuff that goes on in these events is in the middle of it. I think Pete is sort of perfectly positioned to talk about how we're taking these 2 great brands, putting them together, and creating some incredible upside synergies.
Well, and also at Syracuse. So, the intellect is absolutely. How's that? Was that okay? I appreciate that. You were going to follow up. I cut you off, but you didn't mind me cutting you off with that. So go ahead. Yeah, I think, as Lawrence mentioned, we're early stages here. The admin back house to with, and then global partnerships with the Nets group to integrate, seeing huge success there. And then live events, which we just launched recently. So as Lawrence mentioned, the 2 businesses remain separate.
two different types of products, content, competition, etc. But the businesses are very similar. They're both touring models. They're both, selling tickets. So, the efficiencies there are writing to take advantage of. There's a massive amount of opportunity from a scheduling standpoint. We can go out and look at, not the who's a Vegas, whatever, any multiple major events or, an extended period of time. And then what are the incentives to do that? So we're going to commit to that, but we've spent a lot of return. On top of that, it is something we hadn't seen a lot, at least domestically recently, is the government and tourist entities that are willing to pay both products to come hold events there. So typically saw that reserved for, the Super Bowls, the Final Fours, but, the economic impact that major events on UFC and WWE that's linked to these cities is significant. A lot of these cities are looking for something to boost their economy. It started coming out of COVID with that XC to re-engage market. But there's a lot of markets now in the U.S. that typically more spending on major events that now either have created funds or created legislation to fund that. So, we've seen it in Texas had a fairly robust one, Utah, New Jersey. There's a couple of states that are working on legislation right now. So that's something that we used to see in Australia, Singapore, and some of these other markets. Middle East, obviously, spending heavily, but there's a real opportunity there to bundle our products and go out to these government entities and sell that. So, we're in economic impact on our major events anywhere from tens of millions to hundreds of millions to those cities' economies. By the way, shameless plug for a guy who for thousands of years, back when we sent smoke signals instead of emails, did public-private partnerships for facilities driven by mega events. And Super Bowl was always at the $400, $500 million number, and now it creeps up. You all have the advantage of tailoring a specific mega event to the right date, the right time, the right scale. And, you want an event, and maybe it's a little different kind of event. What do you have in your budget? How do you structure it? And you have flexibility that a Super Bowl or somebody else doesn't have. Yeah, we listen, like in Lawrence Mitchell, we control every beat, so we can tailor to the city. And, we quickly brought WrestleMania to Las Vegas with the support of LVCVA, which, we're very great guys, by the way. They are, they're fantastic. They did the best, and, we expect the Super Bowl is the best Super Bowl. We're going to bring the best WrestleMania. It's going to be, over Steve, shout out. Steve, how's that? So vertical integration, these are good examples, but it's effectively the same business. You have a whole bunch of interesting stuff, including motorsports, action sports, and skating. Why is your model of having all of those organizations in one room, why does that work?
For us, it's about efficiency. And not that this is not cheap or easy business, as I'm sure many of us don't appreciate, but the economies of scale, having one events team, one marketing team, one sales team, they're cross-promoting, also cross-pollinating our athletes across all of our events and being able to speak to the audience with that same voice. So being able to target in for ticketing, having a platform for brand partners to engage at 50 events versus keeping 8 skateboard events or 45 Metro Circus events, being able to have one team that can work in and out of the calendar across all 3 properties is very important for us.
So, fan base issue. So, if I saw 616 million total followers WWE, and then I saw another 700 million fans globally across 57 countries UFC, it's a hell of a lot of people. It's an amazing fan base. Young, talk about that too. How do you sustain and how do you grow? It's something we work on literally every single day. And, clearly we're doing it through a variety of ways. First, of course, as Pete talked about, our live events are incredibly important to us. They're the DNA of the entire company. To quote Dana always says something to back up. Nobody goes to a UFC event and says, yeah, that sucked. I don't want to see another more does. And the excitement, the energy of those events is something we we try to essentially fuse on this product. So it's why eventually product is importance. And content obviously is also incredibly important. Of course, the stuff we're distributing on mainstream platforms like ESPN, ESPN Plus, but also our social media contests. We've been a leader in that space, part because we had to be. Our fan base is young. We're the adopters to the space. But that regular cadence of content, that connection to our fans on a regular basis in between the events is incredibly important. We talked about sponsors and, sponsors, people focus on the zillions of dollars in sponsors. That is incredibly important. We are also incredibly focused on activation. How do our sponsors expose the UFC product, energize our existing fan base, to create more interest? And of course, I give you a variety of examples, but one of our best partners is Dropick. Think about how that engages our fan base, people betting on UFC. But there's also a lot of people that come into the UFC ecosystem because they want to gamble on something. Our sport is fun to gamble on. They go on the DraftKings app. They see a bunch of fights they bet on, and all of a sudden they have a great experience and UFC fans. So this is something that we're working on multiple departments every single day. But I can't emphasize enough how important that live event is to us. It is the DNA of our company.
The global expansion is a real opportunity. We haven't touched markets like India, Africa, a little bit in Asia, China, but there's a real opportunity there. And Lawrence touched on it before, but for UFC, everyone gets it. It's fighting. They'd always said there could be a street court, there's basketball, there's street hockey, there's stickball, one court, a fight breaks out. Every other sport stops. Everyone comes to the middle to watch the fight. Well put. You get it, right? WWE, it's entertainment, the same thing. Everyone gets it. There's not a lot of rules. Hockey guys used to feel that way. Yeah, used to. I'm sorry. Used to. Gary, no, we used to feel it. So, there's real opportunity to easily globally expand. One of the things holding us up, one is just amount of output we have, but two, it's infrastructure. Some of these markets I mentioned don't have venues that, can accommodate our events. And you'll take care of it. Well, there's some good venue operators that work on that as we used to. Well, yeah, I think that's a real way to continue to grow it. And what's interesting too is as the Olympics front center in a couple of weeks, there's one of us on the panel, and I know this is how do you get more into it? But 27 SLS athletes participating in the Paris Olympics. Yeah. You guys, as far as being able to hop on, that helps with your international reach, I assume.
Yeah, absolutely. The global nature of the sport is a big opportunity for us and trying to engage the audience all over. So we're traveling around the world. We're also trying to book events around some of our superstars, trying to support them in their local communities, but then also develop them with a fan base to meet them. So this year for SLS in particular, after the Olympics, we go to Sydney, we go to Tokyo, Sao Paulo, and there could be gold medal winners at each of those territories. So we're very excited about all the eyeballs that Olympics will bring to our sport.
So the other stat, which was important from your perspective, is 55% plus of your audience is between 18 and 34. I frankly thought it was more. But again, if I'm an advertiser, I want to reach that. You lock that advertiser in a room, you put the zeros, where do I sign? I assume it's a great, are you looking to reach an older audience as well? Or are you looking to confirm your existing audience, or is that you just go with the flow?
So we're still building fan base. And for us, we don't have the history or the legacy other sports can rely on. We have to innovate to bring it new. And we've tried to reverse engineer our sports for today's fan. So from the rules and trying to simplify them to make it easy for new fans to engage. The competition itself, our racing is short form, heat-based, 10-minute sprint races. Our skateboarding competition is trick-based, and trying to make it as easy for a new fan to come on. So right now, what we're showing on our events, 50% of the broadcast is Vietnam. We're trying to show fans something they haven't seen before. So I think all of the innovative things we're doing lends itself well to the younger audience. I definitely think over time we'll start to get a little bit older, but for now, as somewhat of a challenger brand, having that at 55% stat is something that is going well for us, and I think we'll continue to push on that demographic.
I can't help but think if this were a different business context to be set with Major League Baseball and say, hey, how about us make it 65% of our telecast are back drawn? I say, what are you talking about? Which speaks to kind of the next question relative to the live experience. You sit in an NFL strategy meeting years ago, so we get it. It's just a question of somebody less visionary owners take a while. That at the end of the game, one of the teams is going to lose. 42% of the time, it's going to be the whole team. How do you guarantee the fan has an enriching, exciting experience regardless of who wins? It's easy for you all because of your format, but that's just part of it. The fan experience, what happens from beginning to end. Talk about the fan experience generally and how it's a cornerstone for your business.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you said it multiple times. I mean, a lot of that is the DNA of this business, and it's got to continue to innovate and continue to be differentiated. And I think we've done a really good job of that at UFC and at WWE. On the UFC side, I mean, we lean heavily to innovation. One of our brand accents of the UFC elite version. We love being first in particular in the production space. So I mentioned this previously. Unlike most other sports, we are producing all the content ourselves. The NFL, Major League Baseball, for the most part, are companies like recording. We're producing the stuff ourselves that gives us complete control and the ability to innovate. And I think, I want to talk about this because it's coming up. I think it's a great manifestation of this desire to have our event would be differentiated. On September 14th, we're doing the first live sporting event. No disrespect to the NHL, that was not a live sporting event. That was an event that involves sport, but not a live sporting event. We're doing the first live sporting event, Sphere. This is going to be a completely differentiated entertainment sports experience like nothing anybody has ever seen. And I believe this is a seminal moment in the history of sports in the sense that this is going to be real first convergence of sport and entertainment into one. I think people look back on this thing and they'll say, this is sort of the future of sport. And so this was the moment it all changed. And, as arenas get built in this country that are going to, and I'll use this term, sphereize themselves, they're going to add LED on the outside, on the concourses, in the arenas. You're going to have a differentiated experience. No longer, for example, I believe in 10 years, during halftime NBA game, you're going to watch some play jugglers or a movie half-court shot to 10,000 plus. The lights are going to draw, and you're going to have this incredibly versatile, completely, differentiated entertainment experience that people are going to come to see as much as the basketball game or the hockey game, or maybe even UFC. So there's a lot of things that, we love to innovate on. And I think this September 14th event Sphere is going to be just that.
Do you think that the run of show, as this happens, so you have a run of show at the beginning of the event and the end of the event, you think what the NBA does to think the run of show will really include players like defense early on?
That's another question.
That's a good. That's another question.
I don't know.
We don't have to have time to talk about that. But Peter, relative to your world in all of this, your superstars, your athletes, they're all part of this as well. I mean, it's a show, but it's competition. But they understand that the 2,000 hours of each entity of television that you all produce, it is choreographed to maximize entertainment and also to develop more viewers for social media, etc.
Yeah, I think, it's sort of a live event experience or it's much fun. It's like, how do we bring, some of this back into the arenas that they're used to seeing at home? And it's been talked about for years. And this Sphere is a good example. While probably not sustainable to continue to do Sphere events, but some of these venues that are coming out wide will have a bit more of an immersive experience. And I think people will feel, like at times watching at home, they want to be in the arena. End of the day, everyone, talks about, the 3D thing, you've got the VR thing. It's like, end of the day, people want to be in the arena. They want to be with their, fellow fans. They want that energy. So, but it's upon us to figure out how to continue to engage with them. And, I think one of the things you talked about our athletes, one thing that's very different, I think, from a lot of other sports is that athletes and talent from UFC and WWE, respectively, are accessible. But we make them accessible.
and they're, the amount of meet and greets they do and the autographs, it's very different from any other sport. So they engage directly with their fans. So I think that's very important. We got to continue to figure out, what our fan. We're going to be back to both of you in a second to give your 1 or 2 minute summary of the meeting of life. So you got to start thinking about that. But from your perspective, the property process of putting on an event, a little bit different. Your events are, you can't put all of your events at the Sphere. It'd be nice, but you can't. So how do you maximize fan experience, understanding that you've got a different geographical footprint?
Yeah, well, we're not hosting an event at the Sphere anytime soon. We did receive a cease and desist letter from them recently, so the content we created. So we are working with them as well.
Working with, very proud of you. We will tell you, you need more lawyers. So if you want
our favorite one, our content. So we're very proud.
We'll put up our signals.
Yeah, like so there's that cease and desist from that side.
So that was very exciting for us. But as it relates to the fan, and much like in UFC, we kind of like our athletes accessible. So they're meeting fans at the gates, really walking. The paddock and nitro for us is fully open. They're meeting with drivers. They're in the garages, seeing the mechanics at work. Any fan can skate our SLS force after the event. So we like to think about our fans in their own right as content creators, word of mouth, trying to be the mouthpiece for hopefully future fans to buy a ticket and have a great experience.
All right, boss. We got a minute, past, present, future. Let's talk about the future. Prolific growth. I assume you're going to match prolific growth and put it on steroids, to use a bad example. But give us kind of a minute projection of where the sport is funded.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see more international expansion. We're working really hard on doing our first event in sub-Saharan Africa. We've sort of been everywhere else, except that particular region. And Pete and the team are feverishly working on putting that together. Pose some interesting logistical challenges, but we are going to get it done. Once again, consistent with this mantra of being first. We love doing that. You're going to see more technology, entertainment experience at our events, and also on our broadcast platforms. We talked about the Sphere, but you're going to see more in partnership with us, Meta. You're going to see volume that can capture, where we're going to be, providing a viewpoint that's never been seen before. Via that technology, you'll be able to watch it live from any angle, from the angle of the fighter who's fighting, any way you want. So you're going to see a lot of sort of technological sort of lead in there. And then you're going to continue to see between WWE and UFC, these two great brands are sort of getting together and figuring out ways to work, not just more efficiently, but more effectively as we grow our respective fan bases. So a lot in front of us. We're incredibly excited.
Just hearing incredibly excited. So Peter, your minute understanding. I see you've been at 562 sitting. You're going to run a sitting specialty. All right. So 5 years, what's going to happen?
I'll touch upon, Lord's thoughts about what, the future looks like for our respective properties. I think I'm going to look at what the industry, what I'm watching. And one of the big things that, we keep talking about for years and years is the ticketing space. And we haven't touched on that, but, at some point the technology exists and it's someone that booked a hotel room here or the flight you took out here, that technology exists to dynamically price in real time. And ultimately what that does is the fans tell you what they're willing to pay. They're telling you what your product is worth, right? That technology exists in different capacities. It's very manual. It's not actually real time. While you do dynamic price. So that's what I'm watching to understand. When is that actually going to launch? But it's out there. And when is the industry going to accept it? And, I think a lot of people are probably scared because the fans are going to tell them it's not worth what they think it's worth. But, at the end of the day, I believe it's the best route to take. But that's kind of what I'm watching over the next 5 years. No, that's not. It's the wrong answer because over the next 5 years, you're going to be watching a whole hell of a lot more than that, not just that. Yeah. And my prediction on that one quickly is that you will have a whole list of best practices that others in the industry are going to be looking at and following. Y'all are going to be the stage setters. So anyway, final word, minute, talk about where thrill sports, Thrill One, all of these action sports are. You have a hard job. Maybe it's 27 seconds for each of your sports. 5 years from now, where are you going to be?
So for us, I think every sport organization was trying to get younger. And I mentioned every kid grows up riding a bike. So for us, focusing on engaging more the youths who can either be our next superstar or our next 10, either of those is fine for us. We're launching the Nitro Community Games this September, which is for kids ages 10 through 16, to try and continue just investing into that next generation or superstar. Some of our athletes today are already superstars, age 16. So they will be younger than that moving forward. And then me personally, hopefully I'm up here at a Blazer in 5 years. But
Thank you. I will just tell you really quickly that I think what's going to happen based on what I'm hearing is that in 5 years, these guys are going to be wearing that. But that's all I'm going to tell you. This industry is in good hands and will continue to be incredible hands. Lars Peter, as usual, thank you very much. This was inspiration. Thank you very much.